3, 2, 1. There we go. I think. Well, now it's not playing. Ah, fuck this thing, dude. Oh my god. Alright, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I guess it's playing now. Jeez. Alright. This is commentary for, what video is this? For the speed animating in the Swinging City subway car shot. This is, the only bit of footage I got from working on this animation in particular, and it's it's a 38-minute video, which I didn't really realize going in. So I guess we'll see how the commentary goes. And this, honestly, this will probably be a scrap take. This is just kind of a warm up for me. So, but since we have time, I guess I'll talk about the animation in question here. This was done as part of a group project for a 3D animation class I took in the fall of 2019, and it was a music video for a electro swing song, which off the top of my head I cannot remember. I think it's called "You Have That Swing." I guess, maybe I'll try and put that somewhere. I can't find the song on YouTube though anymore. I got it a couple years ago, and I don't know. I guess maybe it was taken off, and now I have the last remaining copy here, or I put it back on YouTube, I guess, with this video. So yeah, put that's the music video for that song. It's here. But this shot in particular, I guess, I I wanted to record this one because this was one of like several money shots, as I called them, where, you know, for an animation, it's like a really, really well animated shot. Like, that's where like all the budget went into, you know. And obviously there's no budget for this, but this was one of the shots I was really excited about because it was supposed to be this cool, like a zoom kind of pan shot where you're gonna be inside a subway car. The camera's moving forward, and as it's moving forward, the characters are like bouncing back and forth across the seats, also moving forward. So it's like you have this nice feeling of momentum going there. And I just thought it'd be a really cool shot to do. And so when I did this, I ended up having to do it at 24 frames per second for animating it, which I had never done. I think this might have been the first time I animated at 24 frames. And I did it because I was trying to keep up with the actual video file itself, which this was a bit of a wild experience trying to animate 24 frames, because I obviously, like I said, never done it before. And so when I was outlining things, I wasn't really aware of the timing, or the extra timing that would be needed for some actions. Like, I'm so used to 12 frames per second now that I was outlining things as if I was doing 12 frames. And so that leads to a lot of really like quick movements at times. Like, there's not a lot of wind up or wind down moments for some of these actions where they're jumping across. Which I guess right now, this is just the outlining process. I just draw them as like little stick figures, very, very basic, you know, not very detailed. And I just outline their basic movements. And then for the actual inking, I just trace over that pretty much. Because especially for this project, timing, or like the time we had to work on this, I guess I'll say, I think it was about a month, but it took a while to actually get a lot of things set up, like the backgrounds, the renders, because I couldn't animate anything without the renders, the backgrounds. So I was waiting on that. That was my partner on this project, Kylie. She that was one of her roles on this. So, and the backgrounds, they turned out pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with how they turned out. I only wish, my one regret on this project is that we didn't really utilize the 3D space as much as we could have. You know, lots of 3D stills. I think this is one of the few shots where the camera is actually moving, and the only reason that's the case is because it took a long time to render. So we ended up just kind of having to be a bit conservative with our shots. So lots of them were stills, you know. Although now, one of the last 3D animated projects I worked on for this class, I guess I adjusted a setting or something, or maybe like the texture I was using was a bit easier to render, because I was able to render like full 3D shots with moving cameras like in no time at all. It was like one frame was 35 seconds, which was very good considering this project took quite a while to render. So I kind of wish, like I said, we had maybe tweak the settings a bit more to get that to work. But I mean, it is what it is. You know, we still got shots like this, and I'm trying to think what's another 3D shot we even had. I'm honestly not sure. We could have had if we had a lot of time, if we had, you know, a infinite amount of time and resources to work on this, then there would have been a lot more 3D movement going on. The people in the beginning would have been 3D. They might have been some kind of weird abstract, like low poly design, not like full on like people, because that would have been very difficult to do. Just doing a single walk cycle, I learned, is quite a task. So that probably wasn't gonna happen. But maybe some kind of abstract, like their body is a cone, their head's a sphere, and they just have like 2 square little boxes for feet, and then that's it. That kind of creates the illusion of a person, you know, like Rayman. Think Rayman, you know. But yeah, so stuff like that, or like the car, that would have been 3D. But a lot of that just ended up being you know, 2D for the sake of time. But back to this scene real quick. This was actually a really fun scene to animate because you got to do like such fluid movement. Like this part, the little pole swing, maybe one of my favorite parts of this particular scene, because it looked so good when it turned out. I haven't really done a lot of like, I don't do a lot of like action based, and all this isn't really like considered actiony. It's like, it's kind of actiony, you know. He's doing like they're bouncing back and forth, they're swinging on stuff, and he does like that little cool little pole swing at the end there. You can kind of like feel the weight as he's like flying around with the momentum coming up behind him there. Like that was a really fun shot to do. And also the shot at the end where the bird punches the guy, he like kind of jumps up, does a little spin, and then he like socks him right in the face. That was really fun to do. It looked better in the outline for well, not for some reason. I guess maybe because it looked a bit rougher in the outline, and that sort of helped it. I'm not sure, but it felt like it had more oomph to it in the outline than in the final. It still looked good in the final, but yeah, that was just a weird thing I noticed. This part was kind of tough too, trying to line up the movements with the actual movements of the video file, because I could not do that. I went in thinking like, well, I'll do it as best I can, and then like I'll try to like move them. I'll go back and try to move them, like actually like, you know, select the space they're in and then move them back and adjust them in accordance to where the like video is. But in the end, they still were like pretty off. Like this video, you can see here, this video is still moving very fast, and that was a huge struggle, because I realized, oh man, it's like the timing for this is going to be so off. And it wasn't terrible, but it's definitely super quick. Like their movements, I ended up having to slow it down a little bit in the editing program I used, Adobe Premiere, I think. I slowed it down to like maybe 90 or 80%, just so you could kind of take in the movements of what they're doing. Like this part happens so fast and you barely even see it. So I tried to add in a couple you know, extra shots of like delayed movement, sort of, you know, where you can kind of like, your eyes can catch up to what's happening. But like here, there's like not a lot of frames, so it happens super fast. Just gotta drink some water if I'm gonna be talking for, you know, 30 minutes or so. Jeez. But so here, like it looks good, but there needs to be more frames so you can, you know, see what's happening and really take it in, because otherwise it moves super fast until the very end, which is where like the funny thing about the end is I had enough frames because by then the video had ended. You know, once it gets to that close-up shot of the pole, then I just used the still, and then I had like ample amount of frames, although it didn't really matter too much because we were right at the end of the shot, so, you know. But yeah, it was the timing of actions all throughout this animation was a little off, and excuse me, I would have liked to have fixed that. That would have been something I'd fix, like, you know, in not post, but once like the initial like animation is kind of inked, then it's like, all right, now let me go back, let me watch it all, and then I'll make a notes of what needs to be fixed, what timing is kind of off, what needs to be slowed down, because there were quite a few things I thought that had to be slowed down, but I couldn't because of the timing. So, and here we go. Here's me trying to like adjust the positions of the characters. It's like it's a bit of a band-aid fix. Like it maybe helps a little bit, but I don't think it did much. You know, it's still not entirely accurate. The thing I again, if time was not a factor, the thing I probably would have done was like animated like 2 guides in place of the characters. So like I would have taken the scene and maybe added in like a cylinder and a sphere, you know, just to represent like a head and a body, very roughly, and then just moved that back and forth, and that kind of would have been the guide I'd use to animate over. Because I tried doing that for one of my recent animations, the unfinished robot fight in the desert, where a couple scenes I just stuck a cylinder, just for like have a reference point for where the camera would pan and how far away is the animated character going to be. So doing something like that for this probably would have helped a little bit, but I think it moves so fast so you don't actually notice it too much. Although it's kind of like, well, upon further inspection, yeah, it's a little iffy there. But overall, it wasn't terrible. Shading would have been something fun to do for this as well. I remember we got a comment when we showed off a demo of this in class, and someone mentioned like, oh, you know what, you should add some shading to it so they fit into the world better. And I really would have liked to do that. Shading is one of those things for me where like I save it until the very end, and if I have enough time, then I'll do it. But if not, then it's just one of those things I can cut, just, you know, for the sake of like finishing a project sooner or something. Because yeah, there would have been some really cool. It would have been really cool to add shading to this project. And also, again, just you know, having more 3D elements there to kind of give more contrast to the 2D characters in this world, because it kind of defeats the purpose of you know, these 2D characters coming from a 2D world. They're entering a 3D space now, but they're still surrounded by 2D characters, so it's kind of hurts the impact of that a bit. There's not as much of a stark contrast there. So, but again, that was the price of having to do this project in a month, which, to be fair, we could have cut it quite a bit. I think my partner and I, we were ready to cut from when they first get to the 3D world, and then they run out of traffic. After that, we could have cut it easily to having the dog run around the corner, and then getting grabbed by the the mugger or whatever, and that would have been it. We could have cut it right there, and then we could have spent the rest of our time fine-tuning those scenes, you know, because if we have less to work on, then we'd have. Hold on, I'm distracted here. Oh, the video's still going. It's just I didn't pause it while I was doing something else. So, but we could have easily cut like the entire middle section out, and we could just fine-tune the scenes we were left with, and that would have ended up looking a lot better. But I feel like it would have delivered a lesser product overall, because the whole point of the middle is to kind of show, you know, the little back and forth chase scenes that these 2 characters have, the dog and the bird, and that's kind of what helps sell as the ending for me. That, like, you know, they're going through all these hijinks, you know, but they're also maybe kind of bonding through it as well. Maybe, you know, they're spending some time together, and then that's why, you know, at the end, like when the bird ends up saving the dog, it kind of feels earned. I don't want to give this too much weight than it actually has. It's a dumb little cartoon about a bird and a dog chasing each other through a 3D modeled city with some jazz swing playing over it. I'm not saying this was you know, this was set to be an emotional roller coaster. I'm just saying, you know, all the pieces were in place for a reason. So it did feel right to remove like 2/3 of it, you know. Because also for me personally, like, I just felt like that would not have been satisfying at all to see. Like, as soon as they get to the 3D world, they pretty much would have left it. And it's like, well, okay, what was the point of the 3D world then? Like, I felt you could have, you could had them stay in the 2D world, and then they get to a bar fight, they go outside, and then, I don't know, maybe like, there's another mugger there in their world, or something, and it's like same situation comes out. So I felt like having that middle part was pretty important to have. So that's why we ended up just taking it. And I was fine with sacrificing the visual quality for the, I guess the story quality, or just in general, the feel. because like I said, it would have felt weird if it had ended like immediately after they got to the city, because it's just like, oh, okay, they just showed up and then they left immediately. Huh, that's weird. So it's like, well, I want them to do some things in the city first, So I was fine. Like I was fine making that that choice and to stick with the story premise. And my partner, she was on the same page as me, thinking like, well, yeah, so we can cut it if we have to. It all depends on the time. So, and I think she originally had the idea for the whole dog and bird chase thing. Originally, the original idea for this, so initially, I guess we settled on maybe like some kind of like electro swing kind of music. I think because I think she like, I'm trying to remember now. It was a while ago, back in September, October, I think. We were trying to figure out what kind of music did we want to do this based on, because that was like going to be a huge thing for me, because once this was a project I realized we were going to be doing, I was immediately thinking like, oh, there's so many songs I would love to do for this. But then I found out it was a partner project, and then I was like, oh, this I might not be able to do a song I like, oh god. So there was a bit of concern about that, but like after the first meeting, or like the initial like, hey, here's who your partner is kind of meetup thing, we talked for a little bit. And then we found out pretty quickly, like, oh, hey, you ever heard of electro swing music? Yeah, I've heard that. That's pretty good. I like it. And so I was like, oh, cool. There's like a lot you can do with that music. It's very fun to just imagine the little scenarios to that music, because it's like, it's got like a pace to it, I guess, or like it has like highs and lows in terms of like the emotional feel of the music, where you can imagine like, this part it's a more triumphant part, or it's more casual or light-hearted, I guess. But then in this part, there's a bit of tension here, a bit of a build-up happening, and you can imagine scenes playing out to that. So once we settled on that, I was pretty excited to do that, because I had a couple songs that I really liked. So it was pretty easy. Like I was like shuffling through my songs, like, all right, what would be a good song? And I ended up on this song, which, again, I'm pretty sure it's called "You Ain't Got That Swing." And I'd link it in the description, but like I said, I don't know if it's on YouTube anymore, or at least I can't find it. I don't know. Oh, I guess it's actually in the video if you want to listen to it. Actually, there you go. It's on YouTube now. But so I picked that, and then the idea I was having like right away was, because I think she even said she definitely wanted to try and do something where we combine styles, or we have different styles in the video, which I thought was a really cool idea. I like doing stuff like that. Or I like the idea of stuff like that. I guess I've never really done stuff like that before, technically. So I was on board with that as well. We actually hit it off pretty well, so I felt like really confident about the project at the outset. Because that was the whole thing. I'm not a huge fan of group projects, but I understand that, like, if you're going into animation or just really any kind of creative field, you should probably expect to work in some capacity with groups and other people. So it's like, well, I guess I'll just, suck it up and we'll just see how it goes. But it actually ended up, I had pretty positive first impressions, and I felt pretty good about the project just after, like, that first, like, initial 20-minute little talk we had. So that was pretty good. So we had the song, and I was thinking, okay, how about, she wants to combine styles, which I'm cool with. How we do, like, and it's a 3D animation class, so obviously 2D and 3D. I do like to do 2D, and when we'll focus on 3D. So it's like, okay, but if we have these 2D little characters. Oh, and another thing, she also had a preference for the 1920s, 1930s era style of cartoons. I think maybe they're called the spaghetti style or noodle style. It's like I think like Steamboat Willie, I guess, if that's any frame of reference to go off of. So she was fine with that. So then that also kind of fed into like the original idea, where it's like, okay, so we have this like old-timey swing music, but it's got like a modern kick to it, where you get some beats coming in, and we're gonna combine styles, so old and new. I'm thinking, all right, the old cartoon style, we can do something like that. We can fit that in, have these old cartoon characters be transported to a 3D world, 3D animation. That's where that would come in, and then we'll just have them, run through it, do a couple things, and then at the end, I was thinking like they would be confronted by a mugger or something in an alley, and it's like, oh no, things are looking bad for them, and But then like the music at the end, it gets like this really like hype build up, and I would think like, okay, you know what? Then we'll have the other 2D characters come in from the bar that they were originally in. Like they'd come through like a TV or something and just like gang up on the mugger and like just just totally wail on him, but it'd be like a very like cartoony-esque kind of fight, with like a bunch of dust clouds and stars, very over the top. And then they would all go back to the bar and hang out, and then that would be that. So that was the original idea. But then Kylie suggested, or she drew up some characters, and she kind of got into this idea of, well, how about we do like a cat and mouse kind of thing, where we have these two characters and they're chasing each other through the city. And that actually was a pretty good idea. I didn't, because I was having trouble figuring out like, what are they going to be doing in the city? What is this couple going to be doing in the city? And then like, how are they going to move from place to place? Like, are we just gonna like do a montage where there's no transition really? It's just kind of they're here, now they're there kind of thing. But having them chase each other, that actually helped a lot, because it's like it has this constant sense of movement, I guess, where they're chasing each other, So it's like it's still all connected. All the things they're doing are connected by the fact that they are running through and chasing each other, if that makes any sense. So I like that angle. So I was pretty glad she suggested that. And then the only problem was figuring out what are they doing, because I was thinking like, okay, what do you do in a city, that would be like kind of recognizable. And like after riding the subway and getting food from a roadside stand, I was kind of running out of ideas. We didn't really know like, okay, well, what else can they do? So I think one scene that we cut, we cut it, yeah. One scene we cut was they went to a theater, and the little bird would climb up on stage like a movie theater, looking for the dog, and the dog would like make shadow puppets over the projection, scare him away or something. Because I was thinking like, what do you do in a theater, or not a theater? What do you do in like a city? Like and I was thinking specifically New York as well, because I've been to New York twice, so I was like, that was my best frame of reference. So I was like, okay, well, we'll have a shot in like a semi Times Square, but not really though. That first shot where they get into the city and like you have the 360 pan around them, that was kind of meant to be like that was supposed to be a money shot, and I guess it kind of was in a way, but it was supposed to be a bit more flashy, but obviously timing didn't allow for it, so it's just the buildings and everything. But it was still kind of a cool shot. But that was supposed to be like they get thrown right into the middle of things, like, oh man, look at all these lights and like these screens and everything. It's so like flashy and crazy looking. So that would have been like their first like, exposure to this new 3D world, to show like the stark contrast between like where they came from, a more like subdued black and white and gray kind of environment, to this really colorful, bright environment. So and then like I was thinking again, like, okay, we're riding the subway, there's definitely got to be a shot of the subway. There's a part in the song, and it's where we transition to the subway scene, that just feels like it belongs in an underground subway. I don't know what it is, but there's something about, I think it might be like one of the beats that plays it makes me think of like a train light flashing back and forth, like for like at a railroad crossing. I think it's really hard to describe, but it just feels like it fits the vibe of a subway station. Maybe it's from Persona 5 that like I'm getting that impression, or I'm getting that relation. I'm not sure, but that's what it felt like. So I was thinking we definitely have to do a subway shot. That'd be really fun to do. And then again, like, you go to like a city, you see like carts on the side of the road like selling food. So I was thinking, would be fun to do something with that. But then after that, I was thinking, well, maybe again thinking back to like New York City, like, well, maybe riding a stagecoach through a park. Like that was more like back when it was originally we had a couple, like a guy and a girl, and not these two animals chasing each other. So that's why I was thinking like, well, the carriage ride, that would be like a romantic thing they'd be doing, I guess. But like actually applying it to these little chase the cat and mouse thing, it wouldn't have worked so well, I don't think. Because I was thinking like, well, maybe they could like mess with the horse or scare the horse or something. Or actually, now that I think about it, that might have been something. It would have been like horrible to animate, because I would have had to animate a horse. And God, it's just, that would have been probably a struggle, I'm sure. Oh wait, actually, I could have done a horse leg. That might have been one way to do it. Have one shot of the horse just to establish what it is, and then just cut to the horse leg. Because I was thinking like, if we were going to do this shot, probably have the dog run past the horse, but like maybe like this startles it and then it kicks the bird, maybe. We'll have to do a extended cut of this music video one day. You know, I'll back it in the theater scene, add back in the the carriage ride in the park scene. Yeah, and flesh out the story of the mugger. You know, maybe add a scene of the mugger at the beginning, show how he got to be where he was, why he cared so much about his shoes. You know, yeah, that'd be interesting, definitely. So anyways, so yeah, things to do. And then we have like a scene of like a little kid holding a balloon. That was like that was barely connected to a city at all. But I was saying, well, we need something they can do. So the montage part after the subway was kind of hit or miss, I think. And then we were also supposed to have like little transition scenes where like, you know, you have the silhouettes of them hopping across the buildings, which I don't know how I felt about that. 'Cause like, the change in their size was so huge and jarring, I felt like maybe it would be a little confusing to audience members. Or it's like, oh, now they're like giant. That's kind of weird when it's just kind of supposed to be like I don't know if symbolic is the right word, but it's just kind of supposed to be like just a fun little transition, you know? Just them bouncing across the building tops, that's all. But their size not being relevant at all. So yeah, sorry, I just noticed that really sick animation right there. Super slick looking, you know. Hopefully I've been talking too much about nothing in particular, but there wasn't a whole lot to say for this particular video in terms of like the content, because you know, after a while it's like, well, pretty straightforward process here, you know. But you know, now checking back into this video that we're actually watching, we have a fully formed dog right now, and as you can tell, it's very, very fast and loose kind of like animation style. Like the proportions were not at all a consideration of mine, but I mean that was to be expected. I wasn't trying to be 100% accurate. I was definitely trying to stay accurate to her drawings for sure, and that took a little bit of time. I did some practice drawings based on Kylie's initial designs, because there's a quick glance of one right there, because I didn't want to be I didn't want to have it be completely inaccurate to her designs, and for a couple of the tries I did, it was pretty close to what she drew. The dog was probably the harder one to draw of the two. The bird, like I think I drew the dog maybe like 17 or 18 times before I actually had a couple that I kind of liked. But the bird, I drew it like maybe 3 times, and then it's like, oh wow, there it is. That's the bird. That's pretty good. So that was kind of weird. But for the dog, I kind of did this thing where I start out with a character design for animation, and then like the more I animate it, like it initially just kind of keeps changing in very subtle ways, but then it eventually reaches kind of a plateau of like, this is how it's going to look for the rest of the animation. And that's kind of where I got to with these designs. Like the dog, it definitely could look a lot better or a lot closer to her original designs, but the thing about those was that trying to stay 100% accurate to it would not have been very time efficient, I guess. So it ended up being a thing where I slowly began to adapt the design into my own style for the sake of time. So you got like a bit more of a rounded head. I think he's a bit shorter, more squat kind of. And I honestly kept leaving out a couple designs too, sometimes intentionally, other times not. Like his tail, the tail kept going, like it kept coming in and out. It was never consistent, because it was like one extra thing to animate, and time was like of the essence here for this project. So I was ultimately thinking like, okay, well, you know what? I may just cut the tail, and maybe it's like we can just assume that it's tucked up under his shirt or something, because it got to a point where it's like that's an extra thing to animate, and it wouldn't have been a simple thing too, because like, you know, you kind of want to have like a bit of a flow going on with the tail, have it a bit of personality where it's kind of turning certain ways, reacting to like movement in certain ways. So I was thinking, you know what, I don't have the time for this, so I'll have to cut it, unfortunately. I think it's in a couple shots, I think. So I'm trying to think what else. The dog's neck also kept vanishing at times too. The dog's neck and the little fold at the bottom of his sweatshirt kept disappearing at times. because and those would just be, I just forgot. Like I would draw the head. It actually, I didn't pay attention earlier, but this might have been a scene where I forgot to draw the neck. I'm not sure, but because I would draw this head first, and then I'd go back and I would just immediately start drawing the body, because I would forget the neck, because it was such a small little piece to the design, and so then I'd be halfway through the scene drawing it, and I realized, oh shoot, there's no neck here, and then I'd say, you know what? Look at the clock. You know what? I'm gonna have to cut it here. I guess it will just not be in this scene. So that's like something I kind of wish that would have been something, if we had more time, I would have fixed that for sure. But I think for the bird, for the most part, there wasn't a whole lot to the design of the bird that I was forgetting, because everything was like essential in my mind. Like the hat, gotta have the hat. The beak, gotta have the beak. I think maybe the tail feathers might have been like dropped a couple times, just because like from the angle I drew the bird, it's like, well, you might not be able to see the bird here, or see his tail feathers, so I could very let it slide here. The feet took a couple hits in quality every now and then, especially at the end where the bird punches the mugger, because again that was a time thing. So it's like, well, do I want to draw all these feet and then also color them in, or I'll just draw them like stick figure feet and leave it at that, and that worked. It's one of those things. I feel like animation's all about cutting corners where you can, but still also trying to deliver a quality product. It's all about work smarter, not harder. That's, I feel like, the mantra for animation projects. So, but yeah, I guess this is the process that I did this. I ended up just drawing every single individual piece first, and then I go back and draw the next individual piece, because that seemed easier, I guess. I think it also helped me to kind of like gauge. Like I just checked right there. It helped me to gauge if things were kind of flowing properly and they looked good. So like, especially with the head, it basically looks like a bouncy ball. So I was able to kind of like draw that first, and then I could play it back and watch it, and then see like, okay, it's moving pretty smoothly here. This looks fine, or I need some more frames for this particular spot. Stuff like that. So that ended up being the most effective way of animating this. How long are we talking? Good lord, 32 minutes. I got a lot of mileage out of this one, jeez. That's probably the problem though. I got a couple more just speed animating videos planned, but they're super long because they're all animations, and those take a decent amount. So it's like, well, I feel like I only speed it up so much before it goes by too fast. I don't know. And I don't even know. This may end up being the final take for this. I don't know if I have the stamina for another 38-minute commentary. Well, I guess I'll sit on this for a little bit and see how it goes. One thing that also bugs me about the actual footage here, I messed up a setting in OBS that I recorded this with, and so the date and time are not visible. They should be there in the bottom, on that bottom black bar, but I screwed it up, and I set it to just, I think it's a window capture, so it only captured Clip Studio Paint and nothing else. So that kind of sucks. I kind of like having the sense of time, like the progression of time there in the bottom corner, to kind of show like how long I worked on this, because for this project specifically, it was like crunch time, massive crunch time on this one, like to the whole thing. And that kind of led me to reel it back a lot on the third project I did, the late night in the lab. I scaled it back super hardcore on that one, because I was thinking after this, and even the first project I did, which was a smaller thing, I was just thinking, you know what, I'm gonna take a break a little bit, just kind of give myself an easier project to work on, because this was a lot. I did this all in a month, and what definitely helped is the fact that I only had to animate the characters, and that was it. The backgrounds were just still images. They were 3D renders, so that was separate. And yeah, there wasn't like a whole lot of intense scenes. This was one of the more intense scenes. The 360 pan at the beginning was an intense scene. And probably the mugging scene was kind of an intense scene. Just like the scene where he punches the mugger, that might have been it. But other than that, everything else was pretty straightforward. It was just a matter of having the time to do it. So it was kind of like, well, it seemed doable enough within the time, but it was just going to take a lot of like hours, and or no, not hours. It would just take a lot of, I guess, manpower to do. Maybe is that what I'm thinking of? It's given the time frame we had to work. The project seemed doable, and it just would have required like crunch time. I guess that's basically what it is. Because like when we initially came up with this idea, I don't know. I guess I have a tendency to go for ambitious projects, but then like that's not like intimidating to me because it's kind of like, well, okay, so this is like an ambitious project, but now the goal is just, well, how do I get it done? Basically, you know, how do I scale this back to a manageable project? You know, and so that's where you get into the mindset of like, all right, so what are some corners I can cut? What can absolutely not be here, but what absolutely has to be here? You know. And so there were like, you know, there were corners cut here for sure. One of my favorites, which is actually not very noticeable at all, is in that 360 shot at the beginning, where they're panning around. You see them turning around as the city like spins around them. That's actually to save time, because again our renders were going like so slow. I ended up using OBS to just kind of like screen record that same shot, but like in the actual 3D Maya viewer, so it wasn't rendered at all. It was just like the raw like models texture, and then I applied like an orange gradient kind of filter over it to kind of keep it blend in, and like it's not noticeable really. I don't think it looks fine. You know, it's a quick shot, and the only thing that could have given it away was it's like the 3D, or not 3D. There's like a little green dot in the center that's supposed to be like the aim, the focused aim for the camera that's being rendered. But I don't think you can really see it all that well because it's so dark, and the night sky is like, you know, pretty dark blue. The buildings are fairly dark, and then the characters themselves are animated over it. So it's like, unless you're really looking for it, maybe doing a frame by frame of it, you probably won't even see it or notice it. So but that was one of the things of like, well, we gotta cut this corner. So and speaking of cutting things, I guess again, like I mentioned, the theater scene that was like originally planned, but we cut that, and I did. Kylie mentioned to me like, hey, we probably may have to cut this. Are you okay with that? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. But then I was thinking like, the more I worked on this, I was like, well, maybe I could do this scene. Maybe I could throw it together real fast, because like, you know, I'll make a really quick theater, you know, and that won't be too bad. But then eventually I was just thinking like, yeah, you know what? We're already like pressed for time on this, so I don't really need to add more work onto this project. So I figured, you know what, I should probably just not, actually, because like, you gotta draw a line somewhere. So I mean, I'm glad we did the whole thing though. Again, like I said, I was glad we went for the whole thing and we actually managed to achieve it. It was pretty cool. I've always wanted to do music videos. I always listen to songs, especially songs, you know, I really like. I'll think like, oh, this would be really cool, like to do a music video to this somehow. So it was kind of nice being able to do that for this, and actually being able to do a music video. It was fun having things timed to the music, you know, certain little animations. It could have been done better, for sure. Because like I said, the timing for some of these actions was a bit off. Where, especially at the beginning, yeah, there were a couple parts at the beginning, like where the bird like spins and punches the dog. Like I had a camera angle there from like above where he's looking up at the street light. Like I should have cut that, because like it moves too fast. So the pacing feels a little weird there, where like it cuts to this one scene and then it cuts to the other scene very quickly. So, but I think we're almost done with this actually. Oh, we are done. Here we are. Here's the end. This is the scene, the final money shot scene. Which, again, it's very fast. It goes a little too fast for my liking, but like I think that one shot at the very end with spinning around the pole, that looks pretty cool. I liked how that turned out. So I guess before I talk for 40 minutes completely, I guess that'll be a wrap on that. Hope you enjoyed. Hope that was informative to an extent. Hope there was something worthy in that 38 minutes of rambling there. I didn't think I'd get that much mileage out of this video for sure. I figured I'd be doing gaps and pauses here and throughout, but I guess not. So, yep. Hope you enjoyed. Hope that was informative, and thank you for watching. If you watched the entire thing, all right then. Cool. Oh, and like and subscribe. By the way, if you're interested in that, I guess I forgot to do the plug there as well. Whoops, because apparently that works. So I've heard. So.